welcome. And this is a new little thing we're trying out. It's called the Late Bloomers Podcast with two 24-year-old Canadian men who are cisgendered males. So, if you're looking for diverse perspectives, we got it right here. So to start off, I'm Jake and he is
Anthony.
And we're going to talk about ourselves a little bit. I prepared a couple questions to ask Anthony to kind of introduce himself, and I'm sure he just has some to ask me anyways. But I really wanted to ask you, because I don't think I've ever asked you, no cap, we've known each other our whole lives. I've never asked you, how would you describe the high school experience in a small town in Canada as a person of color?
Very interesting. Since we grew up in a small town, I grew up before we really diversified here in our little town, so it was weird because I was always really good at sports, so people loved me because I was good at sports, but I was also colored, so it was like they loved me while I was winning for them, but they didn't want me to do too well to, make something out of it, so it was just kind of, I don't know, it is what it is, I guess. That's the best thing I can say, but
Yeah.
no, as far as like teammates and people I directly would interact with, people were great, dude. Like I fully believe that racism is one of those things that's taught and it's not like inherited or whatever. So no, it was good for the most part. When I was a kid, I didn't really pay attention to it. I was just out there playing the game, kicking the ball. But as I got older, you could see where you get skill capped kind of in smaller towns. People don't want you to do, they want you to do well, but not too well. So.
Yeah. And so, would you say you've ever faced really, any racial discrimination?
As far as in our town, not straight up as far as, someone being directly confrontational. It's more passive aggressive, and it was the worst when I was really young, but as we've kind of diversified in our town and as things have kind of went along, you really don't see that stuff anymore.
Yeah. Because we were born in 98, so by the time we were in, high school, everybody was at least a little bit of an aware person.
Yeah, there were a couple weird things. I obviously only really had white friends, so people would make, they would always call me the N-word jokingly to see if they get away with it. But to me, I kind of interpret it as, words are words. It's more of, an intent thing, so, and it never really...
Yeah, I remember vividly one of our teachers, I called you a name. I think it was Chocolate Thunder.
Yes,
and she did not like that at all. And I was early on in high school too, so she hadn't gained a relationship with either of us really. So she tried to get me in trouble, and you were like, no.
I was having a great time. I loved it.
You're like, they all call me this. But yeah, that's a good intro. I like it. So did you want to ask me something, or do you think I could just keep rolling on more about Anthony?
Not at the moment. Let's go into the second question.
So I started off with one of the more hard questions, I guess. This question is something that is a question that I was inspired by Huberman. So he's been asking his recent podcast guests, can you remember the first thing you did that brought meaning to you? That opened your eyes to adulthood almost.
I don't know if I'm going to answer the question by answering the question, but I'm going to say sports, dude. Sports was the first thing. When I gained awareness as I got older, sports was the only thing that gave me, value and meaning in my life. As you know, but our viewers may not know, things were kind of rough for the two of us growing up in certain aspects, and I felt that sports was the only way that I could gain value as a person. When we did well in sports, or if I did well in whatever sport, people liked me. Things were good at home. I got high fives. I got love or whatever. But
yeah,
if I wasn't doing well or I was struggling with things, it was it was a situation. So yeah, sports was the only thing where it's I gotta do this. I gotta do well. Getting out on the field was so meaningful, whether it was a field or the court or whatever. It was just, that's where I made my mark, So.
Mm-hmm. And the team atmosphere was always welcoming to, like you said before, every team that I've ever been on and that you've ever been on is just you're in the team, and we're in such a small town that everybody knows each other, and it's just a blast. So awesome. Thank you.
I would like to ask you a question now, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I've never really asked you this question in depth, so I would like to know what your perspective was with your family dynamic growing up. Like, how did you view yourself within the family dynamic? How did it evolve over time? Did your understandings of how things were change? How did it affect you?
Okay, so this question is something that I've recently been wrestling with because it still affects me. Right, with my biological father leaving when I think I was like 2, so he wasn't really around for long. And then when he left, he was consistently seeing me every other weekend, as like the court had ordered. And as far as I knew, he was doing what he was supposed to do as a dad. Right, so in the moment, I was just blissfully kid, like, yeah, there's Rob. Oh, like, how's it going? And now that I've grown up and I've know the backstory, like, he wasn't paying child support, he wasn't like showing up every other weekend. Sometimes he'd just be like, hey, like, I can't make it, but he just didn't want to come hang out with me. Like, he was just busy doing dad things, whatever men do who are deadbeat fathers. And like, as I was growing up, I didn't want to accept my like stepfather. Almost, it was like a weird like resistance to affection from him that I had because him like being the father of my sister, and I was 4 years older than her, so I was always like, you guys like her better than me, and I was like more of a disruptive child in the family, I guess, growing up until probably about like 10. Like, as soon as I hit like maybe 11, I started to kind of realize like, okay, we're all a family. Like, we're all here because we love each other. And then my little brother came along, and then I started to get more involved in like full-time sports too, right? Like, when we were younger, it's not like we had 4 practices a week and a game. We only did like 2 practices a week and then a game. So there's more time at home. But then, once you kind of grow up, you're not in the house as much. And yeah, I feel like initially I was very like struggling to find out that like family is important. I was like, yeah, fuck this guy. Who does he think he is coming in here? He's dating my mom now. He thinks he's my dad. And now I call him dad. So it's tough, but it takes years.
Yeah. Damn. Thank you. That's, yeah, pretty much answered my question. So do you have the next question?
I could, yes. I have, tell me about yourself. It's a very general question, but what does Anthony like to do?
It sounds like such a simple question, but it's really not when you like, I don't know. I'm just me. I've been trying my best to like, you aren't who you were and you aren't who you're going to be. You are who you are, and just one day at a time kind of thing. But,
yep.
I don't know if this is like a brief summary of me. I am, like you said at the start of the video, 24-year-old male. I'm working on my education, getting my life straight, man. Like, we called this the late bloomers for a reason. We kind of felt like things were very chaotic growing up, and now we're trying to, create some order within ourselves and our surroundings. So I'm really just trying to get myself together, focus on school and focus on work. I do like to watch YouTube. I like podcasts and books in my spare time. I do that a bit too much right now, but I'm working on it. But yeah, no, I kind of bounce between a bunch of shit, man. Like, had a video game addiction for a very long time, but recently we've like made big strides with that. I don't play them anymore. I would like to get into money management as well as something in psychology or psychiatry. I'm working on those 2 avenues. So
yes, and
I don't know what I can say right now.
Exploring like kind of the same educational pathway that I'm on right now too. So it's cool, and we didn't plan it.
You're ahead of me, you little fucker.
We didn't plan it. We didn't plan it at all. We promise. We just randomly started talking again, and then found out that he was planning on coming to the college that I was already going to as well. I was like, oh, fuck, man.
Funny how things work.
Yeah. So about yourself a little bit more. When you say you have like a video game addiction, what would you describe as like an addiction for yourself? Because everybody can be addicted to different things at different like volumes, right? So like, what would you say is your addiction to video games? Like, how often did you play them? And
So it became more than just something I enjoyed doing. Growing out of sports, I kind of grew into video games because, you can get really competitive with them and work on them. And I felt like I kind of closed myself in a shell. I had a really bad social anxiety at one point. I still struggle with crowds of people and just sometimes people in general. But the the part that I would say made it an addiction was the fact that it negatively impacted my life. Like, if I'm playing video games, I won't do laundry as much. I won't take care of myself like food wise. Like, I won't make food. I'll just eat out because then I can come back and it's faster to just get on the game and grind.
yeah, scarf
Uh,
it back.
yeah, I won't do like work. Like, I really struggle with school and just like studying, like maintaining focus over prolonged periods of time. So the fact that I could just play the game did not help at all. Like, it's not even in my head, so I'm just doing that instead.
Yeah, thank you for opening up because I know it's a soft spot for both of us.
It takes your whole life, man. Like, you are the grind, so
Yep.
it's crazy.
And it's essentially what like pro athletes do, except for we're not making any sort of monetary gain or physical gain. We're just here dumping time into these things because we think we're gonna make it one day and having a blast doing it while we're doing it. But in hindsight, it's always better in hindsight. So at least we realize that we have these problems and work together to work to be better.
Still good experience. Like, you played super high level Overwatch. I played semi-professional Rocket League. Like, we learned great lessons from trying to compete and just playing video games, but it's just
Yeah.
some things you just have to let go and move on and outgrow. So
Yep. Like today, I scrolled through our Discord chat and I pinned the message where you were like, "Oh my god, man, you were in a video for a Doomfist tutorial." Like, this is back like probably fucking like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I watched it because I was like, I don't remember this. Because I also used to smoke marijuana a lot, so I was probably high when you sent me that. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool. Then I watched the video and I had a huge grab. Like, I used my ultimate and he used his Doomfist ult and killed and he complimented me. I was like, oh, look at that. But I was on it was Samido, right? Samido or whatever. Can't remember his name.
I love that. Yeah, it's one of those highlight channels.
Yeah, but that's just a cool eye-opening moment because, like, in the moment, I probably felt on top of the world. And then, like, looking back at it, it just looks so stupid because it's not even real, man. We're, like, connected to this thing because that's what our brain wants. We want that dopamine. We want all the rush that we can get as fast as we can get it and as much as we can get. So, going off of that question, I was going to ask, what goals have you set yourself for next year?
For next year, just the main goal, top of the pyramid, is to just keep on figuring shit out, man. Like, getting my life straight, follow the straight and narrow. I really just want to get into the courses that I desire to be in and just make sure that I'm set up to be able to succeed. That's my big goal right now. So just keep getting everything together and, put myself in a position to do the best I possibly can.
Yeah, sounds good. That's about as much as you can do for goal setting.
So I'm going to ask you a question now.
All for it.
We have quite the history in academics, and I would like to ask you what your journey has been since pretty much just before high school up until now, and how your thought process, how you've matured, how things have evolved, how you feel about school.
Good one.
I just want to know the background.
Yeah, so initially I hated it. Hated school, hated everything to do with school, except for recess and lunch. And then and gym, maybe science, but I never did homework, never did any sort of like hard work in school or to do with school. I was just like, F that, I'm gonna get back, like, I don't need this shit. And I'll just coast through. And I did. I passed everything until I think grade 11 was the first class I failed, and that was drama because I skipped for 2 weeks thinking that I could just skip as much as I wanted and still pass because it was drama. But she actually had tests and stuff. So I realized, like, then I was like, okay, maybe I had to go. And then she still failed me with a 48. So, fuck you. She knew what she was doing, and it kind of taught me a lesson. But then I still kept skipping just as much, anyways. Just more intermittent. We would skip to play Destiny 2, or sorry, Destiny,
Every
and
Tuesday.
we had to do it every Tuesday as reset day. So I would just stay home and play the video game all day, and then go to school the next day and be like, "Did I miss anything? I was sick." And yeah, we did. I did that at least for like the last 3 years of high school because I wasn't in a relationship that was serious with a female or any gender that you're interested in, and I just enjoyed my time to myself, I guess. And then past high school just because I'm not an idiot. Like I just did the work and passed because it's really not hard to pass high school where we are. Like in Canada, they set the bar low.
Yeah.
And if you can't make that bar, you're there's something wrong. Like I'm not trying to be offensive, but you actually have issues that you have to get sorted out if you want to be a functioning member of society. If you can't finish high school, that's just my opinion. But now I took a large break. Like I'm 24 and I'm just going to college. I'm in my second semester of my first year, 3-year program. So getting to this point took a long time. Like 5 years is a long time to just be like that. It's 5 years, right? We finished when we were like 18.
Yeah.
In high school.
I stayed back a year.
Yeah, I stayed back an extra sem because I think I needed 1 credit because I failed like 2 classes or whatever. So I like in total I needed 1 more credit. And then yeah, so it's been a while since I have been in school, and I actually was never really in school. I never took notes. I never listened to the professors or teachers, whatever you want to call them. And I just didn't do my work. I did like the tests and that's it. So now that I'm in college, it's just like a huge culture shock. I'm with a bunch of people who are like just fresh out of high school and they're just sending it as hard as they can. Well, not all of them, but there's a couple intellectuals in there, and it's good because everyone's there for the same reason, and it's because they like the course or they thought they'd like it. So now that I'm in my second semester, I think I told you the other day that there's like 20 people that dropped out that didn't make it through 1 semester. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Everyone that's in our course now is like they want to be there, and now I have a 3.64 GPA, so I'm trying to bust that up to 4 because I just want that 4.0 GPA, man. The grade point average is everything. My comm class definitely took that way down. I didn't put a semicolon where I should have, man, and he took away 2 marks. But yeah, that's my relationship with like just learning has changed so much over the last 5 years, especially with COVID. As soon as COVID started, I didn't panic. I was like, whatever. It's a pandemic. So what? And then I relied on what I viewed as a trustworthy source in Dr. John Campbell. And he was somebody who was facing a lot of criticism in the mainstream media because he didn't agree with mainstream media all the time, because he was updating his science every single day. And that's not what everyone has the time for. He dedicated his whole life to studying this virus. And he's a retired nurse, so everyone was like, "Oh, he's just a nurse. What? Oh, you're just listening to a nurse? He doesn't know anything." And like, that's literally how it was. I would talk to people, and they're like, "Oh, he's just a conspiracy theorist. That's what my dad says." Like when we used to work at that one company that puts weed in bags, everyone was like, "Bro, you're crazy. Ivermectin is a horse tranquilizer." And like, it is. It's like a horse medicine, but also humans can take it. Go figure. But yeah, the pandemic like it started my love for books and reading and podcasts. Like this guy here, Jordan Peterson, I bought both his books over the course of the pandemic, read both of them, and I've read this one twice, which is his second book, Beyond Order. And his first one is still in the possession of one of our old coworkers, which sucks, but one of his rules is don't lend people your books. So I failed him. And yeah, I have lots of books that are just nonfiction, and they're just full of knowledge, and that's what really made me realize, like, hey, I need to go and do something further in the academic sphere, because I'd like to think I'm pretty smart. So thanks, Anthony. I just went on a nice rant, but
You're good.
You were kind of similar too, right? Like when it comes to education, you were like not really a big fan, couldn't really get into the whole school system.
I went off the rails more than you did, that's for sure. I set records for attendance lows, but I got pushed through the system. I won't even lie. But we kind of had similar issues. School was just too easy. That was the thing. Like in middle school, you didn't have to try if like
Yeah.
you're whatever. But once I got to high school, I really struggled because I already have issues with study habits. I struggle to like over the long period of time, I can't like focus on shit. So when I got to high school and I actually had to start trying, it just no bueno. And I think I almost doubled down on like the sports equals value type thing because that's if we weren't doing sports, I wasn't going to school that day. And even then, like I would go to practice, but I probably wouldn't go to class. So
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, right after the ninth grade, like it just hit me where I just stopped going. I stopped caring, and yeah, that sounds terrible. And part of me does wish that I could have went back and did better, but I also feel like I'm very happy with where I'm at currently, and I almost feel like I'm set up better to succeed than I would have been if I just had my shit straight back then. But,
Yeah, almost more of like an actual choice is being made. A thorough
yeah,
thought. You thought about this choice. You're making this choice, and you did go to like our community college, if you want to call it that,
yeah,
Loyalist College. So you went there this year, but that's not. Let's drag it back. Actually, I want to talk to you about Algonquin. We never really talked about that. So let's
no.
go. We're on this phase. So just tell me about Algonquin College. Let's go.
So the thing with Algonquin is it was a decision more based around my relationship at the time. Like as I said before, I had to stay back that extra year for high school, but it just so happened that the person I was with at the time was a year younger than me, so we graduated at the same time, and we decided to go to Algonquin. I went for civil engineering, and I lasted like less than half a semester because I really wasn't there for the
Mm.
right reasons. I was just there because she was there, and that the relationship was what I cared about. So yeah, I didn't do well at all. Like as soon as we had our first like assignment, we had to like go and get some estimates for the costs of material, and I just like I don't want to do this for 40 years,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah, lasted less than like half a semester, came back, and I've kind of just been. I realized I needed to figure out things. There were a lot of things I just didn't know, things I wasn't taught growing up, and I just had to figure out life. I just had to, I couldn't just keep diving into things and failing and just hitting my head against the wall. I had to like take a step back and just really figure out what life is like for me and how I can move forward. And that's when I got into reading. I've read I think like 150 to 200 books somewhere in there, and I really read most of them in that year and a half, 2 years after Algonquin because I was a big failure, and that was when I really had a turning point of like I need to do something different. So,
Mhm.
but then to move back forward to this last semester at the community college, I didn't get accepted into the course Jake got accepted into because I was missing a science credit. So I decided to take a course at our community college, which was general arts and science, just to get a science credit, but also to do other things. That didn't work out. It kind of, as much as I've grown as a person, when I just went back into the academic environment, a lot of things started to resurface. Like I noticed I would play more video games, and that would take more time away. I was kind of deflecting. Like money's an issue for any student, and instead of doing my work, I was like, I need to make money to pay for it. So I was focused on like building a company instead. And then once that got to the point where I've kind of figured it out and it was monotonous work, then I was like, okay, I'm done. And I moved on to the next thing, and I just went back to video games. So
Mhm.
it made me realize that maybe I have to pivot again and kind of learn what's actually going on and kind of fix that, which I have taken steps to do, and I'm doing fantastic right now. Like I currently finishing my securities course, which is the Canadian securities course. It's not like a security guard; it's related to finance. Um, and then after that, I will get my science credit and hopefully two other credits that will allow me to apply to university. So not only will I be applying to Jake's course, I'm also going to be seeing if I can get in at university because I have a couple options to get to where I want to go. So
Mhm. And
yeah,
you like part of the reason why the recent college stint didn't work out was because your diagnosis of ADHD, right? Which we missed
yeah,
that as well. So
yeah.
I just wanted to kind of if you want to share, like
I would
how
love
that happened.
Yeah. So I got diagnosed when I was really young. Like like around the age of 2 was when I got diagnosed, and they wanted to put me on Ritalin, which is typical for ADHD, and it's been proven over time to really help. And the earlier you catch it, the better like medications work, which was information that was unfortunately not communicated with my caretakers. So it's kind of odd because, like I said earlier, we had kind of a rough upbringing. So there are parts of me that are kind of resentful for the lack of education or will to become educated on the topic of ADHD, considering I got diagnosed with it from a doctor who might know what they're talking about. So
Maybe.
yeah, there are aspects of that struggle to deal with. But as far as the diagnosis, which is the topic you wanted me to talk about, when we were in our studies, Jake had a unit about ADHD, and then I came across that unit in my like Psych 101 class a couple weeks later, and then we kind of that's when we pivoted from the company to ADHD. That was, then I started focusing on that, but it really opened my eyes, man, to like the things I've been struggling with and the reasons why I can't like keep prolonged attention and things. Like I really understand what's going on now, and I've been able to take strides towards that. So I'm blessed and I'm thankful of the way things went. I didn't make it through my semester, but I think I learned what I actually needed to learn going forward and to like progress my path forwards.
Yeah.
So.
That was the real like eye opener for you, where it was like, hey, this is what I need to work on.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's some of it's out of your control. Like, until you get medicated, you're going to have these issues that I may or may not have. Like I'm sure most people have slight ADHD now with like the amount of technology we have access to and how fast our brains get filled with information and especially video games. But that's a whole other topic. We could go on like an hour
um,
video on just that, like
that's the
on
real
how video games are terrible for people with ADHD because it's
so
constant
many
dopamine.
the addiction to video games. Like you really understand like why did they play video games? Why did they sit in the chair on the game all day for fucking 10 years? Like
Yeah.
maybe these are some of the reasons why. But
Yep. And
yeah,
that is the last like real life question that I had to ask you that's like, deep about Anthony. Other
mhm.
than have you tried cold showers ever before working out or like a cold bath?
Yes, 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 yes. I absolutely hate cold showers.
Yeah. You're supposed to.
I I tried it. I really enjoy a warm shower, man.
Yeah.
I'm more like a deep plunge guy. Like
Yeah,
I would
okay.
like to deep plunge and do it that way. Have my minute and a half in there, and then I'm good to go. I'm not taking cold showers. I can try it. I can do it for a day or two, but it's not something I'm.
Okay. We'll touch more on that when we have a place together and we can have a cold plunge. I'm putting
I
that
know.
down in the notes.
I know you read Wim Hof's book, and you're kind of all into the cold showers. So,
I
what's your
was.
perspective?
I'm the same way. Now I like a nice warm shower, in the wintertime especially. Cold showers are the worst thing possible. But there's science behind it now where it benefits your day to start off with a cold shower, but it's comfort. I'd rather have a warm shower if I can. And during my time, like just before I went to the military for a quick stint, I was like all about that's like the period Anthony's mentioning here. I was like all for cold showers and like, really putting my body into uncomfortable positions and like meditating and being mindful. And I feel like it was pretty beneficial. Like it definitely changed the way I think and how I thought during the military, and now I'm not in the military for the same reason because I, fucking hated it. But the best part about cold showers is that it makes your skin better. I've noticed that. That if you're trying to get rid of acne, listeners, just have cold showers and wash your face, obviously. But yeah, cold showers
Yeah.
are amazing. And so, do you have any questions for me, Anthony? Any more like deep dives before we move on to maybe perhaps the last topic already?
I am not too sure how much you want to get into it, but something I've really wanted to pick your brain about is how fatherhood changed your mentality and the way you approach life and just what's happened since then and before then and how things have changed.
So I was 21, right? 21 when I found out.
I believe you.
And then as soon as that moment happened, I was kind of like over the moon, and at the same time, like internally, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because that's, I'm sure, how everyone feels when they find out. It's like the Revenge of the Sith scene when Anakin comes back and sees Padme, and she's like, Anakin, I'm pregnant. And he's like, that's wonderful. Because it's just insane. And then, like, so the whole 9 month process of cooking this human being that I didn't have to do, it was hard. I didn't feel connected to this thing, this human being, until it was like near the end of the pregnancy. Because I didn't have any like metric, right? I just saw it inside my spouse. And I was like, yeah, you're pregnant. So what? Fuck, whatever. Excuse me. And the whole mindfulness really came in handy when I was in the hospital with her, and she had an intense labor, 24 hours trying to give birth, craziness. And like, I'm just there, just like listening to the doctors and the nurses, and she's just dying the whole time. And her pain tolerance is insanely high. So like, I couldn't imagine it with anyone else. Like any other female, they'd just be like, ah! But no, she was amazing. Big trooper. Went all the way through without even like making one noise of uncomfort. It was nuts. And then what I did to keep myself kind of clear and like not worried about things, like when she had to get the epidural in, and when she went in to get the C-section started, like the spinal anesthesia, just meditated, just closed my eyes, breathed, and it works. So
Doing it in the hallway, I remember you saying.
yeah, and like right in front of the door, and one of the nurses is like, "You ready to come in?" And I was like, "Whew, yeah, let's go." And I got to cut the cord and all that fun stuff. I got to see the inside of my partner's body. That was cool. Like, you'll never not remember that. You can close my eyes right now and I can see her body open on that table. But it's been 2 years. Like February 25th, our daughter turns 2, and she is immaculate. And I think that once she was actually here and I like saw her eyes for the first time, it was like, okay, there's a responsibility here. How do I be responsible? Because I've never had to be responsible. Not for that. Not in a fucking lifetime. I just had to show up to work at 10:15 with my tie on and make burgers. And that's all I was good at. And video games. And then so once that happened, I realized like, okay, this is stressful, but we can do it. And it's been a really hard, like, I guess the first like 2 years, if you want to count the pregnancy, that was tough. It's just because it's so much change, and it's such a like a volatile situation where anything can go wrong at any moment. Like the first year of a child's life, that's when they're going to die. Like that's why the life expectancies were so low back in the day, because so many kids and babies died. But now we got science, we have like antibiotics, vaccines, we're good for the most part. But like babies can just die. It's called sudden infant death syndrome. Like they literally can just one day stop, gone, which is like, what the fuck? But so yeah, the first year of her life was like, I can't even remember anything really, because I was just working at the factory, coming home, waking up, seeing her and my spouse for like a couple hours, then going back to work. And then like we had 3-day weekends most of the time. I started signing up for overtimes on Fridays if it was offered. And then I only have 2 days. But then realistically, like I'm working till 1 a.m. and not getting home till like 1:30-ish, maybe later if we were like took longer, because you know how it was, you were there too. If like things weren't rolling, you had to stay until everything was done properly. And it was just not ideal. So definitely, if there's any like parents listening right now that are about to become parents or are parents of young children, try to just stick it out in a job that you even don't like, that just has better hours. Because I miss like the whole first year almost. Other than the first 4 months I did take off with my spouse because of how rough her C-section was too. So we were just tag teaming it. and that was amazing seeing how fast a baby grows. But yeah, fatherhood is incredible now that she is also speaking and like running around, and you can actually discipline the child. Like she has a little bit of conscious starting to like come in there, right? Consciousness is like starting to shine through just the tiniest bit. And like she remembers things like landmarks and stuff. Every time we drive past my mom's house, she's like,
Oh,
Grandma's house. So it's really cool just to see like her react to everything, especially new things, because like I have two younger siblings and you have younger siblings as well, but it's not the same. It's definitely its own ball game because you're there all the time, and this person looks to you like you're their dad. Like I never really like had a dad until I was like 6, you know. Then I started to have a dad, and um, and just having that, and I just want to be that. So I guess that's what fatherhood is you just have to be that. You have to be a dad, and it's hard with school too because some days, like this semester, and I'm gonna pull up my calendar here so I don't get it wrong. So this is the first week in the sem, but tomorrow, if I didn't have an online test, I'd be gone from like 10 in the morning, and I'd be home at 9 o'clock, 9:30. So it's a long day.
all day, dude.
Long day. And I don't see any of my loved ones. Just a bunch of teenagers that I'm like acquaintances with. And then like Tuesday, for example, though, I only have 2 classes and they're both in the morning. So I just come home free after like 1 o'clock. And yeah, those days are what I love too. Like when you get to actually engage in her craziness, because she's nuts. She's so smart. And yeah, it's just like this feeling of like, I don't know, it's like a joyful proud, I guess. That's what fatherhood feels like when you're doing it. It's good.
He's like a little ball of sunshine, dude.
Yeah. That's what my dad says as well. She's like, ray of sunshine comes around that corner. Grandpa! Everything's just so positive. Unless she wakes up from a bad nap. You don't want to see that?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it.
But thank you for asking that question. Yeah, I tend to not really share that too often with just random people because I don't want to share my life with random people. But now I want to start a podcast, so yeah, that's just who I am. I don't know. I feel like I like to tell people if they ask, right? So
Yeah.
because if they don't ask, I don't really care. I'm not going to tell you about my child. Like that's my child. I'm very protective over her. I've found that. So
Yeah, you're not gonna throw it. I'm a dad. Look at me. I'm a
yeah,
dad.
want to see my baby? Look at this baby. But that's definitely more of like the women's side for sure. Like I feel like my mom, as soon as Facebook came out, fucking pictures every day. Like, you smile, Jake, going out for Halloween, post it on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I'm not part of that generation, but yeah. That's awesome. That's a good question. And if you didn't have anything else,
No, we're good. We're good.
I just wanted to say, or ask you, like, what you believe this podcast's purpose is in the first place for any of the listeners that made it this far.
Interesting. This is a great question because we haven't even asked that like off screen yet. So for me, this podcast is really about like David Goggins is a huge positive influence in my life, and people like him. I love people like Jocko, Joe. I read both of Goggins' books, and I read Jocko's book. And yeah, I want my role in the podcast to show the grind. I know that you're obviously going to show aspects of your life too, but I would like to get that series going where it's just every day, this is what I did to be productive. This is me doing something that sucks every day and showing people that they can do something that sucks every day. And sometimes you don't do things every day, and there are going to be times where I drop the ball, and I want people to see that. I want people to see a real authentic version of the grind and someone striving to be better, become better, become the best version of themselves. 'Cause I love Goggins and I love Jocko and all of them, but I have yet to see someone who posts daily what they do and the days that they drop the ball, as well as the days that they succeed. A lot
Yeah.
of people, there's like gaps in between certain aspects of their life, and I want to show people the day to day. I want to also do it for myself. It's not just about other people. I'll admit, I want to kind of keep myself accountable and have a progression. I want to be able to look back at videos like this and see like, damn, look at your hairline, dude. But maybe in like 2 years, I'm gonna be looking a lot better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love it. Because you like you said, all those big guys, man, we knew them as big guys before their podcast. And like all the big podcasters have this like ground to stand on before they even start their podcast. So, that's why their podcasts are so big, is because they have the education or the comedic experience, or they went through something crazy. But you're going to see us going through those crazies and like the academic journeys. And like for me, probably another 6, 7 years of school. So that's what you're going to be hearing about. You're going to be hearing about what I learned today or this week, or, oh my God, did you guys know this? Right? So,
yes, exactly. I think a big influence for this is like obviously it would be great, and I'm going to love the aspect of like having that random person comment and
yeah.
help them out. But I think the biggest impact for me personally will be seeing how this influences our friends, people we know, people who I see that are scared to go to the gym or don't go every day, and seeing how like, hey, I know Anthony. He's going to the gym every day, like
Hmm.
helping them do what they want to do and succeed in their lives. And I think that would be the most fulfilling thing, is to just be able to actually influence the people around me in a positive way, and then extend that to other people that I don't necessarily know. So
Hmm.
be a huge thing. Now that I've answered that question, I would like to flip this one back and see your perspective on the podcast. Because
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you covered a lot of the good things about what you're going to show, and like that you'll have like a little series you kind of brainstormed with me the other day, like that you wanted to make, that is on its own like thing than other than the podcast. But that's something that I wanted as well, is self accountability in the podcast. So we can go back and look and be like, well, here I was talking about what I was supposed to do next week. Like, hey, I got this big exam coming up and got to do this, got to do that, study, prepare, and actually hold myself accountable and have like a receipt for it, because
yeah,
unless you're writing things down and keeping things super organized, and I don't know, I have journals and stuff, but I don't use them for that. I'm more of like a creative journaler. I kind of like tell a story in my journal whenever I write, but personally, I just want to get my voice out there, and in the field that I'm in, the voice is all we have, and like our actions. So if we can show that our positive actions can lead to positive like consequences, and everyone else can see that and understand that, like, yeah, sometimes we're probably going to not have like a super upbeat podcast like this one, because this one's been going great so far. We've just been flowing. It's already been 45 minutes. And essentially, I just want to show people that it is okay to have a down day, and it's okay to talk about things that you might not want to talk about, like your racial experience, and or sexuality, or what's going on as a dad, like you asked, or how your shift at work was this week. Did you get yelled at by any Karens? Like, we're going to be able to experience that for until we decide not to do this podcast. But in my eyes, I want to keep doing this until I'm gone, because this is something that doesn't take any effort. We just sit here and talk and use our brains. And in my field, behavioral science and psychology, I just want to know, man. I just want to know everything I can about this in here and about yours over there through that camera. And I just want to figure out what makes people tick. And that's what you guys are going to learn with me as well when we go through this journey here. And I wanted to touch on something. I had like something I learned this week that I wanted to bring up. And I was hoping to do this like every week, because usually that's how like rapid the college course is. Every week I'm learning like breaking through a new subject at least. So there's something that's interesting to me at least once a week. And this week it was part from my ethics course, which everyone is like, oh, ethics? That's boring. Like, you just gotta be nice, bro. But the Nuremberg Code of Ethics. That's what I found interesting this week. And it's just 10 rules. I think it's 10 rules. Fact check myself here. I'm going to quickly Google search that. But the main point from the Nuremberg rules is that it was created after World War II. And what's it called? It's the Nuremberg Code of Ethics. There we go. Can't wait till we have somebody like Jamie to do this for us, you know? Like, hey, pull that up, bro. But the Nuremberg Code, or in German, Nürnberger Kodex, is a set of ethical research principles for human experimentation created by the court in U.S. Versus Brandt, one of the subsequent Nuremberg trials that were held after the Second World War. And the principles cover individual criminal accountability for crimes under international law. So this is like a worldwide thing. And it ends impunity, equality before the law, and then fair trial rights. And then moreover, the crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity were defined. So now that's how we have like war crimes. So that before World War II and like the Nazi scientists, those didn't exist. So they were doing insane shit to people, man. They were literally injecting people with viruses and seeing how long it took them to die. And like giving people hypothermia to see how long they would die so that they would have to, which there's just science behind these things because they needed to see how long somebody, like let's say a fighter pilot crashes in the ocean. How long do we need to look for him before we know he's dead? They found that out by torturing people in their containment camps and giving them hypothermia on purpose and killing them. Like with a timer, like, okay, yep, 3 hours, dead. Now we don't need to search for him. Which is horrible shit, but the scientists had a valid reason. And that's why ethics is a big deal, because up to like 40 years ago in our field of psychology, there was like big, huge ethical problems. People were isolating people on purpose, like putting them in a room for like 4 weeks with just water and bare minimal food to see what it would do to them. And so, you know, now that we're kind of in more of an evolved society, ethics is more known across the board because it's just the basic stuff. Like you have to be nice. You have to treat someone how you'd want to be treated. You have to go by your code of ethics and not just what you think is right and what they think is right. So it's a lot of basically being righteously just. You don't want to let your emotions control you at all. And that's what these Nazi doctors did, right? So, yes. Yeah, that was the most interesting thing I learned last week.
Well, I'd like to ask you a question about that. Do you think the potential impeding of progress is worth having ethics? Like, do you think we're better off with them, or do you think not having them would, help us to learn more?
I did ask my professor something similar, because she was explaining how many benefits we got from those scientific experiments, right? And then as soon as she was done reading off the list of experiments, she was like, that's what the Nazis did, and they killed people. So like she just made us think like, wow, those are great scientists. And then right after she was like, by the way, all those people didn't sign up for the trials and like didn't give consent, and they also lost their lives a lot of the time. So for me, like obviously you have to respect people's individual right to like their life. And if they don't want to sign up for an assignment or a test, I'm not going to do that test on them with like against their will. But you can see there's been the most scientific advancement as like right after during like 1932 or whatever to 48, like that like 12-year period, we invented more things than we ever have in history. And like right after the war too, because those same German scientists were brought over in Operation Paperclip, and we used them over here because we excused their war crimes because of how brilliant they were, and just expose them and really, use them for what their gifts had. And yeah, I feel like we might have more things than we do now. Like maybe we would know how to be immortal or some crazy shit if there was no ethics and we were just killing people all over the place against their will, like taking homeless people off the street and doing experiments on them. But yeah, definitely I think ethics are important. And if you aren't acting ethically, then you also can't be trusted. So it's like, it's a tough one, because if you break the code of ethics, you can lose your practice. And Yeah, that's a whole other topic we can get into, I'm sure, after like, especially this week's ethics course, because we start an assignment this week. So,
Very interesting because ethics, like most people, like you said, find it a snooze fest. But if
yeah.
you really get into it, it's quite an in-depth topic.
And it's important because without ethics, shit hits the fan, bro. Like, it's caveman world out here. You're all killing each other. It doesn't matter. Like, if I took your parking spot, you just kill me. But we're
What's
living in a
going on?
more advanced world now. But yeah, that's the best thing I learned this week, other than some funny little jokes that I had in class. Like, just I noticed how. So I wanted to ask you too. I just came up with a quick one when we were talking about ethics. Did your professors kind of have to be really careful with their vocabulary, like when it comes to like gender pronouns and like swear words? Do you remember them ever saying that?
He, they're not explicitly saying that, but you could tell with their mannerisms and the way they conduct themselves that they're almost like, I don't want to say walking on eggshells because it's not that deep, but like they're they're pretty close to that. The most interesting like aspect of that is my psychology teacher seemed the most distant from that kind of ideology. She
Mm,
would be the one to challenge those kind of things the most when we're in class discussions, which was really cool to see,
yeah.
to understand like that dynamic. But you can definitely get the sense that people are aware and conscious of like constructing their phrases and the way they speak in a certain way as to not step on anyone's toes, which I'm not sure how I feel about that because like yes, I think, everyone's opinion matters obviously, but there's also the flip side of the coin of where we should kind of be challenging certain ideas and just having the discussion. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great, because for me, it's so funny to see because I'm in like the behavioral science course. So every one of my professors except for my ethics professor, it has like a major in psychology or they've gone to university for something to do with behavioral analysis. So those people don't often apologize for calling a group of people guys or saying like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do." In tomorrow's class, you guys. And then they're like, oh, sorry, did I offend anybody? Like, I hope I didn't. It's just like, I'm 50, so, forgive me. I'm still new. And then like, there's only like two people that are like that, or two professors, anyways. So, and they're both not the professors that teach psychology. So it's cool because most of the time they don't bend their language, but I've noticed them do it a little bit more since I came back from break. They've been getting like maybe they got an email from their boss and it was like, hey, last semester we got some complaints. Like you guys need to watch your swearing and your pronouns. But that'll be another whole podcast too because changing language is a big deal. But I think that's kind of a good place to call it, man. We covered a lot.
Well, I'm good if you're good, dude. That was great. That was really great.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed myself because we talk all the time anyway, so I'm going to enjoy myself no matter what. But that was good. Having a more structured conversation is awesome.
It was cool. I'll admit I was very nervous going into this. This is the first time we've done something like this, but I'd say we knocked it out of the park.
I think my favorite part was when you said you hope to impact people that actually know you by watching, like if they see this somehow. I love that. That was like a little tearjerker for me. I was like, oh man. But awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony.
No problem. Thank you, Jake.
All right. Well, we'll see you later, late bloomers.